Hey everyone, welcome back to Hidden Tale. I'm Krown, and today we have some unbelievable stories for you. From crazy encounters with entitled parents to the joy of serving justice, we've got it all. So sit back, relax, and enjoy these amazing stories. Let's go. Alright, so a little backstory. This happened about 4 months ago. I had just finished an 11-hour shift and needed to stop at Home Depot to get a new drill. I just wanted to run in, buy it, run out, and get home. Of course, it wasn't that easy. I had just gotten to the drills and was looking over the options in my price range when I heard it. Excuse me, where are the wax toilet rings? There were a few other people in the area, so I ignored it, assuming there was an employee nearby. It's important to add that I work in traffic control and had just gotten off the job site. I was wearing high visibility pants, a high visibility vest shirt that said company name traffic control on the back. A radio was a shoulder mic, and I had a traffic control technician certification card displayed on my vest. The employees here wear orange aprons and normal clothes. Hello? Do you want to do your job or just stand there looking at tools? At this point, I glanced around to see what was going on. I assumed some customer was berating an employee, which happens a lot at this location unfortunately. I was surprised, however, to see some 30-year-old guy in a white button-down shirt and tie looking at me like I'm stupid. Can I help you? I said, still not sure of the situation, but that seemed to tick him off. Yes, you can tell me where the wax rings are, he shouted. At this point, it clicked in my head what was going on. I'm sorry, sir, I started saying. I don't want to hear anything but an aisle number, he yelled, interrupting me and drawing the attention of a few other shoppers. Honestly, how did you get this job being so stupid? I tried again. I don't work, but he cut me off again. Oh my god, why is this so hard? Where are the wax rings? Now, I don't know why, but I got an idea in my head that I thought would be amusing, and at the very least might get him away from me. I pointed behind him at a random aisle where wax rings almost certainly weren't in, and I said, "It's right there." Finally, how foolish can you be? He yelled, huffing and storming off. I thought that was the end of it. I figured he'd realize they are not in that aisle and then find an actual employee to ask. Nope. He came right back and started yelling that I don't even know how to do my job and that his best friend is a district manager and that he'll have my job. During his yelling, I noticed a few shoppers staring at us. I just raised my hand, pointed to the same aisle as before and said, "They are right there, look. Can't you see them? How foolish can you be?" I retorted, taking glee in throwing the last part back at him. But he wasn't amused. He smacked my hand down and shoved me, yelling something about foolish teenagers. That was a bad idea. I am not a skilled fighter or super strong or anything, but I know when I can take someone. And this guy clearly didn't. I punched him once square in the nose, presumably breaking it, and he fell back, hitting his head on a concrete ground hard. "Someone call the police! This guy just attacked me!" He yelled as a crowd nearby grew larger and larger. I was worried. Obviously, it was in self-defense, but I kept thinking that I should have shoved him back and not punched him. I was worried that if he hit his head to the point it caused a lot of damage, I could get in trouble. A manager came over and asked what was going on. He started screaming that, "This employee attacked me when I tried to ask for symbol directions. Look what he did." By this point, blood was visible on a spot where he hit his head, along with the blood pouring out of both nostrils. "Who did?" the manager asked, puzzled and concerned, looking around at the actual employees who were still on their way over to the commotion. "Oh my god, are you all this foolish? Him!" he screamed, pointing at me. He doesn't work here, sir," the manager said. The manager got on a radio for more employees, ignoring this man's insistence that I did, and told me to follow him. He took me to the security office and had me wait for the police. Luckily, multiple customers and cameras saw my side of the story, and since the police went to the injured person first to render aid, they also interviewed witnesses over there before coming to me. When they came in, I gave my side of the story. The police said it contradicted his version of events, but that it matched the witnesses' statements. They said the guy was yelling that he wanted me arrested and locked up, and that's when the manager pulled up the footage which showed him hitting my hand and shoving me, and that I only hit him after that and only once. Also in my favor, I was facing him with a drill shelf behind me when he shoved me, so I was somewhat cornered. They then asked if I wanted to press charges, and since he wanted to get me arrested, I decided, heck yeah, lock him up. They then arrested him and took him away. Okay, let me preface this story by stating the fact that I am well aware that it sounds absolutely insane. I also don't really condone the behavior displayed therein, including my own. My family is a mess that gives trailer trash a bad name, and unfortunately, every word herein is true to the best of my recollection because it happened about 25 years or so ago. My grandmother started having children young. She married at 13 and had my father when she was 14, so she wasn't quite as old as other grandmothers by the time I was born. She had full custody of me from the day I was born. I never went home from the hospital with my parents, which meant that grandma was the only mother I ever had. My father and mother didn't want to raise me because they were too busy getting high to care about their baby, so they just gave me to her and left. Which is why she had me to start with. It did not end well for me, but that's a topic for a whole other group. My grandmother has been dead 10 years now, and I still have nightmares about her, so that is a fair indication of the type of person she was. She was vicious and had a temper like a powder keg. One tiny spark and it was on like Donkey Kong 100% of the time. She was also super possessive of me to a degree that was a little terrifying. It bordered on obsession and it was not healthy. However, it meant that when something happened to me, she had no chill at all ever. She could go from 0 to psycho in about zero point 0.3 seconds, and it was at times a little bit awe-inspiring when it wasn't directed at me. It was a bit hypocritical, though, since she was abusing me herself, but apparently in her mind she was the only person allowed to treat me like this. There was a particularly aggressive jerk that lived near my house. He hated me and I hated him, and it was a consistently escalating problem. I was almost never allowed to go outside as a child, so when he bullied me, it was always at school and the staff turned a blind eye to it more often than not. One day, I came home from school, 5th grade by the way, with a fat lip and a giant bruise on my face. My tormentor had managed to catch me between classes and had taken the opportunity to beat me where nobody could see or report him for doing it. My grandmother snapped. She took me by the hand and we walked to the bully's house, and I stood in the driveway watching her knock on a door. I was petrified at the time because I knew the mood she was in, and I was also scared of the bully and his mom. I was a giant ball of vaguely human-shaped anxiety, and for good reason. The bully's mom opened her door and looked at my grandmother. The conversation went essentially as follows. It's been a long time, so I can't entirely remember everything that was said. "What?" she said with serious disrespect in both tone and delivery. "Your son put his hands on my little girl," Grandma said. "And?" The woman didn't even try to deny it. She just lit herself a cigarette and blew the smoke in my grandmother's face, daring her to do something. Now Grandma wasn't a big lady, she was average sized and about 5'5" tall, so not particularly intimidating physically. The bully's mom was a larger woman, about Grandma's height but much heavier, outweighing Grandma by at least 60 pounds. She was not impressed with Grandma showing up at her door, and she didn't care about her son's behavior or Grandma's feelings about it. This was a mistake, because about a half second after the bully's mom blew that smoke in Grandma's face, Grandma snatched her up by her hair, dragged her out of her own house with it and onto her front porch, and then promptly threw her off it face first, following her down into the yard with murder in her eyes. It was a trailer Porsche, so it was actually a pretty decent drop too, because their trailer was set up higher than normal. For my part, I was absolutely certain that the bully's mom was going to die at the time. As I said, Grandma had issues, and that meant that when she snapped, she snapped. And when that happened, she was capable of almost anything. The bully's mom took the fall like a trooper though, and came up swinging. She managed to clip Grandma's cheek before Grandma managed to get a good hold on her hair again and use it to fling her on the ground again. Grandma hit her a few more times before she managed to pull Grandma down with her. The two of them were rolling around in the dirt like a pair of angry dogs, snarling, swearing, and biting and clawing at each other. It got ugly, so very ugly. The bully's mom was a tough cookie though, I'll give her that. She was given as good as she got for a hot minute, but she wasn't ready for what Grandma was capable of. They wrestled on the ground for a while, but Grandma finally got the bully's mom on her back and started feeding her knuckle sandwiches while sitting on her chest. Then the bully's mom made a terrible mistake. She tried to use one of her legs to hook my grandmother and either flip her off or kick her in the face. I am not sure which it was really, but the end result was that her bare foot was way too close to Grandma's mouth. Grandma's response was to turn her head and bite one of the bully's mom's toes clean off at the joint and spit it right back into her face. I will never forget the look on the bully's mom's face when it happened. It was a combination of incredulity, horror, and what just happened, rapidly followed by pain because she started howling like a scarlet cat. The whole time my grandmother was still hitting her, only now the bully's mom wasn't trying to fight. She was just trying to get away because she finally realized that Grandma was crazy and absolutely capable of killing her with a smile on her face and a song in her heart. This was the point that the cops showed up and separated the two of them. They had to pry Grandma's hands from around the bully's mom's throat to do it. The bully's mom was out cold by that point and purple. So one officer put my grandmother in a squad car with me beside her, while the other called an ambulance for the bully's mom and looked for her toe. Then came the explanation. Most people would have been in big trouble by that point, but Grandma was without question the best actress that I have ever seen. If she'd used that skill in movies or theater, she would have been an Oscar winner without a doubt. It was extraordinary. She could rewrite whole events, and even if you knew that she was lying, she'd end up having you believe in her version and questioning your own memory and sanity. To this day, I have no clue how she did it. The story she spun for the cops was one of her greatest works of fiction. Grandma claimed that I had come home from school after having been assaulted by the bully and that she'd wanted to speak with the bully's mom about his behavior and try to work out something to correct the problem between our families in a responsible way. But when she knocked and the bully's mom answered, the bully's mom was hostile from the beginning and eventually became physically aggressive when my grandmother said that either she dealt with her son or Grandma would be informing the authorities immediately. Then came the big performance. And what a performance it was. Tears started to trickle down Grandma's face and she used her most quavery old lady voice to say that she and I had turned to go, but that the bully's mom pushed me off the porch. After I hit the ground, she tried to do the same with Grandma, but Grandma had grabbed her out of reflex as she went down. They ended up falling together with Grandma on top. Grandma claimed that the bruise I had on my face came from the fall, not the previous altercation, and that once they were on the ground, Grandma had just lost it. Could the officer really blame her? That woman had just assaulted her and her child, and she was only one old lady. She was so scared that if the bully's mom got up, she'd hurt me or her, and Grandma wouldn't be able to stop her again because it was only luck that put her on top when they fell. All the while she cried quietly. Not big sobs, nothing showy, just silent tears sliding down her face and that tiny, quavery old woman voice. She apologized for her actions because she was just so scared. Then the officer looked at me and said, "Is that what happened?" It was a very scary moment for me. And while I'd like to say that I told the truth and that I did the right thing and was honest with the officer about what had happened, I can't because that would be a lie. I absolutely did not do any of those things. Instead, I looked at Grandma and let the fear and the stress of the situation just rise up and swallow me. Then I used that emotion to promptly burst into tears myself. I didn't really talk, just nodded my head and cried and clung to Grandma, who stroked my hair and rocked me back and forth while I was trying my best not to look the officer in the eyes. I knew I was nowhere near a good enough flyer to pull it off if he was looking dead at me, so I hid my face against Grandma's shirt and just did my best to seem traumatized. He bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. The bully's mom ended up being arrested for abuse of a child, assault, disturbing the peace, and possession of an illegal substance. Because when they searched her, they found a small bag of an illegal substance in her clothes. This all occurred in the mid-90s, so this possession was no joke at the time and had heavy penalties. The bully's mom also ended up being responsible for my grandma's hospital bill for the sprained wrist she ended up with from pounding on a bully's mom's face like a meat bongo. The toe never got reattached, and the bully's mom ultimately ended up losing her job and going to actual jail for 4 months. She was on probation for 3 years after. My grandmother didn't catch a single charge from that day's events, and the bully's family eventually moved from the trailer park. I never saw any of them again afterwards. Moral of the story? Never mess with old trailer park ladies. You might lose a toe. Okay, so my service dog of 5 years recently passed away due to cancer on the 3rd of this year, and I remembered this story. I'm 14 and this story took place when I was 13. I was in a GameStop at the mall that I went to weekly because I had ice skating classes and I had my service dog with me. She was a psychiatric service dog trained to avoid anxiety attacks that can lead to harm to myself and others and to alert me when I might pass out. She did not have a vest because it interfered with her work and my disability. And by the Americans with Disabilities Act law, she doesn't need one in that case. But she did have a leash that read Anxiety Service Dog and Do Not Pet. I was looking around and I also just wanted to pop in and say hi to an employee, the GameStop lady who I was pretty chill with. I was looking at a game for my Switch, I think Minecraft, and my dog was behind me for a task, basically to make more space for me to avoid an episode since people being down my neck is a huge trigger for me. And I heard this lady. Oh, cute puppy. And she picks up my working service dog. Oh, can you please not pick her up? She's working and has to stay focused. I was cut off by the woman who was still holding my dog. It doesn't have a vest. It's fine. Excuse me? By law, she doesn't need one if it... I was cut off again. But this time, I could feel like I was about to have a really bad episode. I felt like I was going to faint as my dog struggled to get to me and out of the woman's grasp. Then the employee friend came to my rescue. Ma'am, please let go of Dee Dee. She's a working dog and what you're doing is illegal by distracting a working service dog. No, this is my daughter, therapy dog. Who's her daughter? I don't know. She was there alone. No kids. The next thing I knew, I was falling down and it went blank for me. This next part was told to me by the employee. She said that after I went out, the woman dropped my dog on her face. My dog was small, a Chihuahua and Dachshund mix, and the woman was around 6 foot to 6'3". They said my dog just got up and rushed over to me and started tasking by licking my face and laying on my stomach to try to wake me up. But I didn't wake up for a while because it turns out I hit my head on a glass display case. They called 911 because I wasn't getting up. I woke up to mild security and cops around me as one cop was cuffing the woman. Later I found that she was getting arrested for assault, animal cruelty, attempted robbery, distracting a service dog or something like that, and attempted murder. My dog and I ended up being okay. I don't know very much about the legal stuff, I just didn't even want to bother with it. We just didn't have the time or money to really do anything about it. Please don't distract working service dogs. The handler of that dog is depending on that dog to do its job to keep them safe and / you're alive. When you distract a service dog, it cannot do its job and is putting both the dog and the handler at risk of injury or death. Please know that these aren't just dogs. They are medical equipment and are here not for your entertainment but to do their jobs and be very cute and very good puppers while doing it. When I was younger, around 14, I always wore collared t-shirts, often used as uniforms at most electronics stores. I had just started a simple job elsewhere. I was going to use my savings and first payment to buy my first self-built gaming computer. So I was in a computer electronics store trying to learn and make a few plans. Doing this as efficiently as possible, I like to get hands-on, and it helps me think/plan better. As I was crouching over components like Golem, trying to select my own components for the very first time, this lady came up to me and tried to get my attention. Me hunching over, knee-deep in my own thoughts, she asked me if I worked here. As focused as I was, it slightly startled me and I jumped up and only managed to come up with a short, as I was going to ask her what she just said, not being able to actually make out the question she asked. She continued to ask me if I could help her, and I don't blame her considering my appearance. Me just having entered the job market, I had received some service experience and figured I might as well. The question probably couldn't be that hard, right? And the following interaction ensued. I tell her, yeah, sure. What do you need? I'm trying to find a laptop for my son, but I'm completely lost. Seems fair enough and a reasonable question to ask anyone with my appearance, regardless of me working there or not. Oh, okay. Were you thinking school laptop or general use? Well, it's more of a gaming laptop really. Oh, okay. Do you have a budget? Or any other information that might be useful in making a decision? Yeah, I have a budget of insert mid-tier budget here. And I know he plays Team Fortress 2 and Roblox. Haven't just spent a few weeks learning and recently acquiring the knowledge of what parts are important for what, I could confidently answer. Oh great, that doesn't necessarily require the most expensive computer on the market. Have you looked at any options? In a slightly frustrated tone, the lady says, no, that's what I came here to ask about. Well, have you looked at any of the laptops displayed in the section over there? I said, pointing to the 2 rows of demo laptops closer to the registers. Getting even more frustrated, the lady says, no, I have no idea what I will be looking for. That's why I came over to ask. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, anything within your budget or even a bit cheaper will probably have what you need. Just look for relevant specs at a time and it will be more than enough for him. Can you join me so I'm sure? Figuring at this point it shouldn't be a considerably longer interaction and I could get back to my things. Just point out 3 options at 3 different prices and I could leave. So I accompanied her over to the laptop section. Okay, so which ones will be an option? I've pointed to 3 different laptops and made an effort to explain the differences in a short but precise manner. After concluding, I considered myself done. Beyond that, you could really just pick based on your budget. As I was about to leave, she said, so what can you do on pricing here? A little confused, quickly realizing the mistake that had just happened, I said, oh, I'm sorry. I think there is a misunderstanding here. I don't... Oh, come on. I know you guys have some leeway on the prices. What's the best you can do? No, you see? Oh, don't you dare be more condescending than you were earlier. That should account for the price too. Probably referring back to when she was getting flustered in the first place. A bit taken aback about what just happened, I said, I don't... Oh, but I know you do. I know I can get a better one if you just work out whatever you have to. What about that one, huh? Could we do 20% here? That seems reasonable. You have to talk to... Fine, direct me to your supervisor. But you're coming with me. I don't work here. What do you mean? Why else would you be helping me? Now come on, let's bring this to the register and get something done. As we proceeded to the checkout, which was rather close, she was literally dragging my tiny little body along as I made an effort to explain the mishap. When we got to the register and a worker saw this lady literally trying to push me behind the counter, they asked what was going on. Well, this young man is going to honor his word and sell me this laptop at a 20% discount. Oh, but he doesn't work here. Well, why has he been helping me and promised me a 20% discount then? Your company is now responsible for keeping that. I tried to tell you that I don't work here, and whatever the case is, I will have this laptop for this price. The worker continued to explain what was about to happen next. I managed to slide away as I saw a manager approach. From what I could make out as I lingered in the area trying to get back to my things, the lady got upset and left in a bit of a hurry. As I was getting back to my things, the manager approached me, and thinking I was in trouble, I was about to apologize for making the lady think I worked there. He assured me I had nothing to worry about. He had in fact watched me deal with the situation and told me some customers are like that with the real employees too. He apparently admired the way I explained things to her and asked if I ever needed a place to work, I will be welcomed back. I appreciated it, finished my planning, and I left. Background. You see, I'm a 20-year-old female who works at a chain of convenience stores we shall call the Tree of Dollar. Working as a cashier is challenging enough because of COVID-19 and entitled customers, but it's worse when your own co-workers cannot get along. Karen had just been working at a store for perhaps only about 3 months, yet during that time she had already been promoted to key holder. The power went to her head and she was acting like she was in charge of us all, even though most of us had been around longer or had the same position. And this is where Arena comes along. Poor Arena. She was a target from day one due to her being a bit of a doormat. She would clean the store whenever Karen was lazy. She had to cut her break short because Karen wanted to go on her break. Even her own labeled food in the fridge was taken because Karen did not want to spend $5 on some cheap TV dinner. The incident. It eventually got to the point where Arena finally had enough, and the two began arguing day by day all the time. Now, some information I missed due to not being on the same shift, but the next day I came in, there was already a bad vibe in her room. Karen was muttering under her breath and saying a lot of horrible things about Arena in front of me and the customers she was tending to in line, while Arena tried to keep her distance. My boss wanted me to have them stay distant, yet the moment I came back up front, the two were arguing over how poorly the rug was being swept. There is so much dirt on here. You think this is a barn or something? Karen asked Arena. It's just a small bit. I'll grab the broom. Don't even bother. You can't even clean the rug right. Your parents can't even show you that much, she said, using a mild derogatory term. Note, Karen and I are both people of color, yet she would always say mean things about Arena, who was white by the way. Stereotypical things like trailer trash or some other nonsense. Arena at this point looked truly drained and walked off to go find a broom. Later, when our shift was about to end, she asked me to ring her up quickly since she didn't want Karen at her register, and I said sure. After all, she only had like 2 to 3 things and there weren't a lot of people in line. Right away, as soon as I had finished bagging her stuff, Karen was right behind me and began yelling at us that we shouldn't be shopping on a clock. Note, this was totally okay with my boss since everyone, and I mean everyone, buys stuff on their shift. Karen wanted Arena to clock out and then buy her stuff, but Arena of course protested. By this time my boss and supervisors had already left us alone in a store. It was just us along with some stalkers until the second shift arrived. More people began to enter the line and watch as Karen entered this huge tirade about how teens like us were so disrespectful and how she would teach us a lesson. Right away, she took out her phone and called my boss about how we were shopping on a clock and disobeying her. My boss was about to ask for our side of the story, but soon Karen hung up the phone and gave us a look like, haha, you're in trouble now. Tired and annoyed, I told her that she had to chill out. This was not shopping on a clock, and even if it was fine since it was allowed actually. Big mistake. Little note about Karen, she's a middle-aged woman who still acts like a mean teenager from high school. Her attitude was the worst, as she would flip out on anyone without care or regard for who they were. She was already in hot water because of this, and now that the fire had been struck, she was furious. I can't remember everything word for word, but Karen was livid. She began to insult my hair, my clothes, and saying that no one would ever want an ugly idiot like me. Now, I have horrible anxiety as it is. Imagine all of this. All of the yelling, all of the cursing, everything. And the store is packed. People are watching, and here I am not knowing what to say as I'm reliving high school all over again. I went into a panic attack. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, and I was crying but seething. Granted, I shouldn't have said this, but the look on her face made it so worth it. I shouted, "At least I'm not some foolish person still here slaving away at a counter while trying to have an affair on the side." Things got messy from there. Karen wanted to fight, but we were taken outside by the stalkers, blessed them, and left to go home. I had been given a few days off to calm my nerves, but it didn't help. I felt like complete trash. The revenge. Karen made me feel like I was at my weakest point all over again. Like I was trash just as I was feeling confident about myself and everything. I wanted revenge. When I came home that day, my grandmother saw me crying and came to comfort me before leaving for a few hours. When she came back, she told me Karen wouldn't be a problem. I later got a phone call from the big boss, the district manager, about the events of that day. After telling him my side, he said he would contact me later. I thought that I was done for, that it was over for me. But then Karen was gone for a few days. A few days turned into a week, and a week became 2. We were informed that Karen had to be let go due to workplace bullying, harassment, poor customer service, and so on. She was gone. Yay, right? Not quite. It wasn't until I came home and told my grandmother what happened that she finally told me about her revenge. Now my granny is a pity woman. Mess with her? Pray that she'll show mercy. Mess with her family? Pray that you'll be gone quickly. That day when she left for those few hours, I found out it was to set her plan into action. She returned to the store hoping to see Karen. My granny found Karen near the back of her phone, talking about how disrespectful I was to her and that I better watch my back. My grandmother started her plan, beginning to act as the world's most annoying customer, making spills in front of Karen, constantly interrupting her on the phone, and so on. Remember when I said Karen's attitude was the worst? Yeah, she flipped. She flipped once again and lost her cool. From what my grandmother told me, Karen didn't know that my boss had arrived at the store to switch off with her. When he saw his employee yelling at an elderly woman over a split case of water, that said elderly woman was hunched over to grab, it was a nail in the coffin. Karen was fired. I originally wasn't going to post this due to it being so long, and unfortunately, Irina left the job due to it stressing her out too much. From what I hear, she's doing better now, free from the terror of Karen. As for Karen, she's the reason I am now posting today. She came to the store, and judging by her surprised face, she didn't think I was still around. But I was. My coworker was outside on her smoke break when Karen stormed outside and proceeded to vent to my confused coworker. Judging by her yelling, she was talking about me, obviously. Lots of, "I can't believe that someone like her is still working here," and "I don't like liars. She's a liar for getting me fired," and "She stinks and she's so ugly." Other than the personal shots at my appearance, thanks for that, Karen, I took a lot of pleasure in seeing her this upset at seeing me. It brought me even better joy when I went to lock the doors and made a rude gesture out of the camera's view, smiling and all. Karen, if you ever see or read this, just know you're a jerk. Thank you for watching Hidden Tale. If you like today's stories, please hit the like button and subscribe for more great content. Share your thoughts in the comments below and tell us if you've had a similar experience. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next episode.